Okay, so the appeal to heaven flag. The reason that I did this, like I said, because I just thought that it was cool. And as you guys can see, the letters are fucked up. The top of it is fucked up. It's very hard to read on here. You probably can't even read it at all when you're looking at it through Colin's deal. But it does say an appeal to heaven at the top. Here we can see it in studio. It's dark. So,
but it is. It's noticeably smudged.
Yes. Okay. So I went to do it the first time, and first I drew and realized, oh shit, I have to paint this white before I can paint any of this stuff. So I had to paint over the letters that I had already drawn, which looked really good. They were spaced out and all the type of stuff. And so then I painted white, and I went to do them, and it looked fine, and in pencil, and it looked fine. And then I painted over them, and it looked like shit. They were very inconsistent. Some of them were super thick and thin, and then it was running up at an angle, and I just couldn't get it right. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to sand all of this off, and then I'll redo it, and that will be fine. And so I sanded it off, and I sanded like halfway off. So this actually looks kind of sick. Like I kind of look this like this worn thing, you know. So I'm going to redo them again just to darken it again, so I can sand it intentionally, right? So I do the letters again, and I go to paint white, and it fucking smudges it all to shit just like that, right? So I'm getting super frustrated. I'm like, why is this not working? I don't understand why I can't get this to work. Like, it's just letters. I want this to just look the way that I want, so I could just get this art done, right? I was cramming in the last couple of weeks to try and get all of this stuff done, so I was also just very stressed over time and everything. So I sat back, and I'm looking at it, just thinking, okay, appeal to heaven. This is an appeal to heaven. This is what we're doing. This is, why did I pick this? Why is this flag relevant? Why did it come here in the first place, right? What is this a reference to? I'm just trying to think about this flag just so that I can just try and process through what the fucking issue is. So the origins of this flag, right? Like I said, it was flown on the first ships that George Washington had under his command. The statement, an appeal to heaven, is from a John Locke writing, in which he talks about, and I'll read this piece really quick and then we can talk about it, because this will kind of get me to what I'm talking about. So the phrase is a particular expression from the Right of Revolution used by British philosopher John Locke in chapter 14 of his second treatise on civil government, which was published in 1690 as part of the two treatises of the government refuting the theory of the divine right of kings. And this is the passage. And where the body of the people or any single man is deprived of their right, or is under the exercise of power without right, and have no appeal on earth, they have a liberty to appeal to heaven whenever they judge the cause of sufficient moment. And therefore, though the people cannot be judged so as to have, by the constitution of that society, any superior power to determine and give effective sentence in the case, yet they have, by a law antecedent and paramount to all positive laws of men, reserved that ultimate determination to themselves which belongs to all mankind, where there lies no appeal on earth, viz. To judge whether they have just cause to make their appeal to heaven, right? Okay.
That's a powerful statement.
What he is saying, right, because it was a lot, it's very wordy, as are things in the revolutionary time that are written, right? What he is saying is, when you are existing under a government in which you have a constitution that is supposed to give you rights, but those rights are being infringed on by someone who believes their rights are above yours, their power is above yours, you have the right as a man as a human being whose rights are instilled in them by God, to appeal to that God, to appeal to heaven, to get those rights back, to regain them, right? So this is what underlines and justifies the Revolutionary War. That this is past you now. You are infringing on rights that you have no right to go over. We are now appealing to heaven because we have for years tried to appeal to the crown so that we can work with you and make sure that these rights are being followed by you, and we can feel happy with what's going on.
Because up until this point, the highest point essentially was always going to be the king, because the king was ordained by God anyway.
Precisely.
So,
and as we've talked about with Sam Adams throughout the reading that I was doing, right? He agreed and was a fan of government up until the point that they were infringing on your rights. So they were trying to work with the crown the entire time until they continued to fuck them, and that's when they finally rebelled.
And now it's time to go off,
yes,
bro.
People I don't think recognize how long that actual process was. Like,
it was decades, wasn't it?
Decades, yes. Over 20 years of them speaking with the crown about different laws that are being passed and taxes that are being passed and stuff like that, right? So,
because everybody always assumes, I think falsely, that like there was that shot heard around the world, bing, bing, boom, and then that's when it all kicked off. But this was like that's why they talk about like the redress of grievance and all that stuff, is because yo, we've been trying
Yes.
over here, and you're just over here swinging your big dick crown energy around.
Years and years and years. Okay, so after I'm thinking about all this stuff, I'm like, okay, this is my issue. My issue is that, and I'm going to get emotional. I was getting emotional. I was talking to Jordan about it. My issue is that with why I can't get these letters to look right is because I don't believe that I have a right to make that appeal. Right? I am not a person of theocracy, of religion. I'm not an atheist or anything, but I don't pray to anybody. I don't think about God. I don't anything like that. Right? So this appeal that when I'm making this thing, I'm like, this is great. This works for 2023. Like, we need to take back our rights, all this type of stuff. I don't have the ability to make this appeal to heaven because I don't have a God to appeal to. Right? As I'm starting to think about this, I get upset. I'm like, that's dumb. Like, that's dumb that would be the reason why I can't do this. Right? So I started thinking about it more. I don't think that as a nation, we have the ability to make this appeal anymore.
Definitely not.
We have lost, and I'm not saying it's Jesus Christ. I'm not saying that it's any particular thing, right? And because we talked about this when we answered like Jake Lyons' question a couple episodes ago, right? I'm not defining it to a particular religion or a particular God. We have lost God. Whatever that looks like to whoever you are, we as a society have lost that guidance. So this appeal that they made during the revolution to a higher power, we don't have the ability to make that appeal. We are completely disconnected from the people that we are saying we are deriving our rights from.
And this is the danger of like a completely secular society, right? Yes, I mean, we can have because I'm definitely in a very similar situation. It kept me out of the Freemasons, for God's sakes,
right?
Because one of the prereqs to join us, you have to have a faith in a higher power, AA style, right? You got to do the higher power. Pick whatever one you want, Ramaswamy style. You could be a Hindu, but you still believe in a God or something like that. Right. But for, like you said before, not even really as an atheist, because I'm not really an atheist necessarily, but like I'm not a man of faith. Because it's not like I haven't been able to struggle with that. I've studied and this, that, and the other thing. You know, I've gone to various different churches, etc. I had a roommate in Long Island when I lived there. Go up to his parents' house all the time on the weekends and shit like that. We'd hang out, and then every Sunday we get up, we go to Catholic Mass. Yeah, did nothing for me. You know, I've been to all sorts of stuff, but I do get the argument essentially that I think it's the same argument more or less that like Jordan Peterson pushes. And why he's kind of gone down that road. I mean, you hear the Daily Wire people talk about that shit all the time, that like there's a reason there was all the God language in all the founding documents, right? And whether or not you prescribe to that necessarily without an ability to appeal to heaven somehow, you stop at the king because that's the highest power that you know of. There's nobody higher than that. And when we've had deep discussions about rights and where they stem from and how to understand them, and they require at least an acknowledgement that being born as a human being is something innately special as it is, which gives you those rights. But even then, you can't appeal to biology as a thing to be able to like justify your pushback against authoritarianism.
My opinion, in this new line of thinking that I'm going down, right? We have to acknowledge that there is something before us and after us for those divine rights to be an ethereal concept that travels through all human beings. Otherwise, we're only working for ourselves. That is why we are running into these issues. If you don't identify with something outside of yourself, you can't think past yourself. You're only thinking in a defined timeline of whatever your life is. Or if we have multiple generations who are only able to think about themselves, you can't sustain a country like that. You can't sustain a race like that. You know, like I don't mean like the white race. I mean the human race. Like you can't. Human beings cannot survive if they don't think about what happens past them. And so when we have this push to move to secularism, coupled with the push away from having children, you truly only think about yourself. If you were a godless, childless individual, you will truly only conceptualize your own life.
Word. And that's okay. So this is fantastic.
And like you said, the highest person you can appeal to is the fucking president. That's it. That's the
it.
top. Is
The
the
king.
government. That's the government is who gives you these rights. That's how you get to this distorted point of about guns, about how they give you this right and they do this. That's how you get to the distorted point about taxes, about fucking income, about what the government owes you. It's because that's who gives you this, right?
Yep. Ooh, what's up, Zeke? Shout out, Alex.
Blessed are old people who plant trees, knowing that they shall never sit in the shade of their foliage. Yes. Precisely.
That's it.
Precisely.
I was trying to think of what that line was. It's like, that you plant the trees that you'll never sit under or whatever it was. But Alex, of course, always a master of soliloquy. And nails it.
And like I said, that we're not, turning into a fucking Christian freedom podcast. Like, that is not what's happening here. I'm not telling anyone that they need to go to Catholic Mass or they need to go to mosque. I'm not saying any of that type of shit. I don't, because another issue that I think when I was talking to Jordan about it last night, that with some of these older religions, they are unable to or unwilling to identify other religions that are newer or arguably older, or to identify them on the same plane. So if you are of like a whatever fucking Wicca or whatever, any of these fucking random ass religions, right? That are religions, but they're just earth-based theocracies that are very, very different from a traditional Judeo-Christian, you know, very, very different.
I know some modern-day druids,
precisely.
What I mean?
It's the same thing, though. At the end of the day, those people are recognizing a God in nature and in like a higher. Jordan calls it like the source. That's what she. But that's the same thing as God, as a Christian going to church and praying to God. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And
it's the same motivation that like put motivation in like Viking warriors thinking that think they're going to go to Valhalla if they die a brave, and stemming back throughout all of history since essentially the advent of like the god Marduk and all that stuff of the old days. This is the first time I think in any kind of human society where we've ever actually been a completely godless society at mass. And
right.
It's not just, it's America, it's all over the West. It's pretty much just over the West, and then also actually China too.
Yes.
The whole communism thing, that's never worked out well.
And I think that the key is not necessarily an embrace of those smaller, like lesser known, lesser practiced religions, but an embrace of the concept of theological equality, that you don't have to, not only do you not have to be a part of one of those larger religions, if you are part of those larger religions, if Jesus Christ is the God that you identify with, right, you don't have to practice this faith in the prescribed fashion that structure hands down to you. No. I don't think that even is required, so long as you are actually able to identify and believe in something outside of yourself. Like I don't think that.
You don't need to prescribe to any specific religion necessarily, but for lack of a better term, to be like a God-fearing person of some kind, to have some kind of faith in a higher power.
Because even if you pick Jesus, I'm not saying you
that
go to
would
church
be the
every Sunday.
foundation that you would have to rely on and actually truly believe on the inside to actually be able to properly, what's the right word I want to use, properly understand the concept of rights.
Yes.
Because there has to be a higher power on the other end that is not made of man.
Yes.
And whatever that is, you'd still have to have that. And you'd still have to believe in it in some capacity.
That's what I think.
Which is troubling to me. Because it's not something you could just do.
No.
You can't like logically find your way there. Some people I guess can, but at the end of the day, there's like they call it a leap of faith for a reason. Like you're either a believer or not. You can lie to yourself as much as you want, and that might be better than the alternative, I guess. But you're still never actually going to be able to truly feel attached to like the foundation of rights.
And to me, when I think about it, it feels like enough for me to know what that source is for me. You know, whatever that is, whether it is Jesus Christ or it's fucking Muhammad or it's the source or like Durga, like this goddess of equality that I was talking to you about not too long ago. That's from Hinduism. Like whatever that is, like I'm fine. I would be content with just knowing for me who that is, and that to me feels like enough to form a relationship with that entity and to be able to make that appeal.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think that not only can we not make this appeal, you can't go anywhere when we try.
Fucking talk about kicking off the podcast with an existential crisis, good sir.
Welcome to the south of the streets, coming at you